So, hi everyone. Weli Miliagwek, which means good afternoon in Mi'kmaq. My name is Laura Engelhardt. I'm the Market Access Officer at the Joint Economic Development Initiative, short for JEDI. I'd like to welcome you all to our breakout session with Joe Allen from Energia Ventures. In this session, Joe will share how to start a new clean energy business or project. Joe, the floor is all yours.
Excellent. Thanks everyone for turning out. As Laura mentioned, I'm Joe Allen. I am the managing director of Energia Ventures. Energia is a business accelerator that focuses on companies in the energy, smart grid, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and clean tech sectors. We have just finished recruiting our seventh cohort, and we've been at this since 2016, I guess it was. When we started, we started out doing one cohort per year. And the demand is such that we've grown to two cohorts a year. So May, June, July, and then September, October, November. And what we do is actually we run businesses through a arduous, we'll call it, 12 weeks, where we teach you how to become better businesses. So you are likely a subject matter expert. You've got a pet topic that you want to turn into a business. You've got an idea. You explore that idea. You come to us, and we will, assuming that you get in, we'll help you out for about 3 months, where we focus on things like sales, competitive intelligence, marketing, forecasting and accounting, HR, legal, all the good things that come with a business. So the oversimplified version is, if business were a book, we try to cover all the chapters. So starting a business it certainly can be a daunting task, and certainly challenging as we go along. But you know what? You're not the first one to try, and you won't be the last one to try. And the key is persistence. Persistence in doing what you're doing. So when you start a business, it's going to be an uphill battle. And one thing that we tell to our entrepreneurs is it's in life we have highs and lows. And in entrepreneurship, those highs and lows are accentuated even more. So, we've got certain events in our life that trigger real joy. For example, it could be a wedding, the birth of a child, all those, Christmas, all those good things that we rank really high. Well, if this is the high for those things, a lot of times the high for the entrepreneurship feels up here. And I'm not saying that, the birth of a child, it doesn't count quite as much as, say, your first sale. But what I am saying is that your highs and lows are going to be very, very high. And the lows, we don't need to talk about them, but they're there, and they can be very low as well. How do you, tying into the baby analogy, what do you do when someone tells you your baby is ugly? And that can be your business. People are more willing to say your baby is ugly when it's a business versus a real baby, because all babies are cute, right? But not all businesses are cute. So the key for starting a business is to find something that you're passionate about, something that you feel that you can drive change in. Because when we're looking for companies that we invest in and entrepreneurs that we support, the first thing that we look at is the people. We look at the people first, because at this stage of your business, those fledgling early steps of your business, you're going to be in a situation where you are the business, and the business's reputation is your reputation. So you need to be that founder that people can trust, and you build trust with investors, with funding agencies and funding partners, and ultimately that's what they're investing is you as a person, first of all, and then secondly the business idea that you have. I've seen innumerable businesses fail simply because they may have had an idea. The idea may have been absolutely spectacular, But if the founders don't have the ability to execute and perform and bring that idea to life, then it will ultimately fail. Um, that doesn't mean that isn't to say that you all need to be subject matter experts on every topic. You certainly don't, uh, and no one can be, and we don't expect anyone to be. But that doesn't mean that you can't build out a team of whether it's co-founders, employees, mentors, partners, the guy that you know down the street. You know, it can be anyone and everyone, and what you need to do is make sure that you surround yourself with to handle your deficiencies. One thing you need to do is be very self-reflective and say, okay, I'm good at this. I'm not so good at this, but I know someone that is good at this, so I can either hire for that, or I can find a volunteer who can mentor me to. So I bring along an improvement in my abilities. Meanwhile, the business is improving as well. So the key is to be, the key to success is to have a topic that you can be very, very passionate about. Getting back to the highs and lows, there are going to be days when you're feeling a little low. And if it's a topic that you're not passionate about, it certainly is hard to get ramped up and amped up to tackle that topic on that day. But if it's a passion project, they say everyone needs to find a hobby that they love and turn it into a job. And that really is one of the key success factors for entrepreneurs is to find something that you can be passionate about. Now, some people, it's simply the opportunity to succeed, and that's enough for them. Give them any topic, and it doesn't matter to them. It's just about driving revenue and driving profit and growth and numbers, and that's what amps them up. But most of us are those subject matter experts where we are, we've discovered a challenge, and that's typically the key and that's where a lot of business ideas come from is how do I get from point A to point B? Right now, it doesn't exist. You know, I think of Netflix. They came out with a new way to get videos in people's hands, and at first it was they mailed them. It was like instead of going to Blockbuster, you went to Netflix and they sent you a movie in the mail, and then you would send it back. And then they went to the streaming model. So it's about adapting and finding out where that hole is. So the going to the streaming was them adapting and kind of filling that hole. And they were one of the early players, for example, in the streaming sector. With clean tech, one of the challenges that we see is the length of the cycle to market. A lot of times, a clean tech idea, it may be a wonderful idea, but it may be that it needs $5 million of investment, or it needs $10 million of investment, or it needs 3 years to prove that it is with the third party doing research and development on a topic. So how does the company survive for that window from zero to selling it in the market? And with clean tech, we see much longer cycles from that perspective. So it can be a challenge. There are a lot of funders out there that recognize that the return on a clean tech investment, for example, will be a little longer. So there are investors out there that recognize this. There are funding partners as well. Sustainable Development and Technology Canada, SDTC, is a good example. NRC IRAP, anybody that can help fund the research and development of it. Now, one thing that we see a lot of is that someone has recognized that there is a gap, there is a challenge, and they believe that they have the skill set and the idea to fill that gap. And they dive in and they start creating and creating and creating, and before they know it, they've got a prototype and it's got 27 different features. And I ask them the question, who have you talked to about this idea? And they say, well, I live in my mom's basement, so I've talked to my mom, and her friend Joanne comes by and visits, and she thinks it's a good idea, well, you might want to expand beyond that. One of the best things that you can do is before you spend a dollar is go out and talk to people. You think you've got a solution. The question is it really a problem? You can find a solution, but the problem may not actually exist. It may be a pain. It may be a pain in the butt, but it may not actually be a problem. Uh, you need to talk to the potential customers and see if there actually is a problem. So how can if you go out and you interview 25 different groups, potential customers, potential partners, subject matter experts, et cetera, you need to make sure, first of all, that the problem exists and that it is a problem for the user. And then you need to say, okay, fine, we agree that there is a problem, we need a solution. Here's my proposed solution. You pitch that proposed solution to the end user, and they either say, "Oh, that the cure is worse than the disease." The work I need to do with your solution is actually greater than the work I need to do with the problem as it is now. So you don't want to hear that. You want to hear a situation where, oh my goodness, this is groundbreaking. This is changing everything up for us, and making things much better. And if you hear that response, then you may be onto something. You also want to make sure that you can create something that is not cost prohibitive. For example, again, the cure being worse than the disease. If you need to spend $100 to fix a $5 problem, you're probably not going to do it. You're going to continue to spend that $5 on that $5 problem. The flip side is if that $100 eliminates that $5 problem and you have to deal with that $5 problem 27 times a day, then it pays for itself. 27 times 5 is $135 versus the $100 that the company is going to spend to fix the problem. So in that situation, that would be a positive to improve the situation. One thing I didn't mention, please, if I see it in the chat, if you've got questions, please fire away. This is much better as an interactive session. If you've got a business idea that you're thinking about floating, I'd love to hear about it. This is what we do. We're here to help the companies and help people with ideas. So, excuse me. So yeah, step one is to get out and talk to the people that are going to use your solution. Step two is to decide whether or not after those discussions it's worth moving forward. Again, if everyone you talk to says, no, this is a great idea, we've got a problem, this appears to be the cure for the problem, what I like to do then is recommend that you try to do it for $300 or less, even if it's a mock-up. Rather than invest a lot of money and spend tens of thousands of dollars on a solution, if you can mock it up for $100 or $200, a small amount of money, and say, okay, here's my working prototype. I know it's ugly. I know it's made from plywood when it's going to be titanium in the end, but I'm showing you just to get the general gist of how it's going to work. So that is a tip to, it's not going to slow you down, but it will help you make mistakes along the way. You'd sooner have a $300 prototype in the market and where you're sharing it with potential partners and customers than the final one made of titanium or some very expensive metal, and you can make adjustments to it on the fly. Same with if it's a platform, a service that you're providing, whether it's a computed service or software as a service. Talk to the users, find out exactly what the users want and need. Far too often I see a subject matter expert dive down deep into a rabbit hole and they emerge with a platform that is on steroids, like it's got 172 features, and it's an absolutely wonderful platform. But then they go to the users and say, so what do you think of the platform? And they say, love it. These 3 features right here, I'm going to use every day. The remaining 167 features, I will never touch. So find out for sure before you go too far into your creative mind what the customer wants from that perspective as well. One thing that we see a lot of is inventors inventing, and if some is good, more is better, and because of that, we see platforms, inventions, creations that have far too many bells and whistles. Let's start with the simple bells and whistles, perfect those, and then if we see an opportunity to grow and expand, we will work in that direction. So I'm gonna throw my glasses on because I
Yeah,
see.
I think I can read it out to you, Joe.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
save your breath here.
Okay.
So we have Shannon Somerville, and she has a question. She asks, with this sector, is there a lot of government red tape / regulations that have to be considered? Chief Ross had spoke to the hoops his First Nation had to get their project going. Oh, sorry, Shannon.
Shannon, it really depends on what you're doing. If the more complex, the more regulatory challenges you may have. If you're working, for example, in nuclear, those regulations are probably, and hoops are probably a good thing. If you're working with anything that, obviously the greater the chance of risk of somebody being hurt, injured, et cetera, from, the area of focus, then the more regulation and red tape you're going to face. We see in the clean tech space, we see there is and there isn't. It really, the environmental impact assessments are key with clean tech creations. And I think of larger ones, like windmill farms or solar farms, where there is a big base. If it's a platform like a software as a service, regulatory challenges drop off significantly. So really, it depends on what you're doing, and sometimes that red tape doesn't make sense. If it, don't be afraid of it. If it is challenging, and ask, get some help with it. If I was filling out a form today for someone, and I'm like, I can't submit it. It won't allow me to. So I checked with someone, and they're like, oh, you didn't tick this box. So sometimes that's an oversimplification, but it really depends on the area of focus for your clean tech solution. No problem. So as we work through things, we're going to run into challenges. And again, the biggest thing that we want to do is get the product in the hands of the users. Now, a lot of times people at this point will say, yeah, but you don't have any patents, or aren't you worried about people stealing your ideas, et cetera, nefarious type stuff. And does it happen? Absolutely. But I would suggest it's the exception rather than the rule. Most people, the people that you're going to typically for help and for questions, you're gonna, either you trust them from the beginning because you know them. I'm going to reach out to my connection on this topic because I know them and I know they're going to give me a straight answer, and I'm not worried about them stealing my idea. Funding agencies, etc., those types of groups, they're, your idea may be great and it may be the greatest idea, cure for cancer, cure for, fusion, whatever. The funding agency folks, they're busy. you know, I hate to oversimplify it, but they don't have time to steal your idea. They're there to help, and same with investors. I used to work. I worked with the New Brunswick Innovation Foundation, investing venture capital dollars into companies, and there was always a concern. Well, if I tell you my idea, you're going to steal it. And no, I'm probably not, because we get about 25 ideas a day, and if there's just not enough time in the day. So know who you can trust, and obviously trust them as far as you trust them, but don't worry about someone stealing your idea when you share it with them. They're typically not going to. And that's the key. You need to get out there and get your ideas out there, and have people hear it. So you can't be afraid of that as well. My daughter. Sorry if you're hearing laughing in the background. That's my daughter. I'm hoping she's laughing at the movie I've got on, and not what I'm saying. So yeah. So building a business, whether it's clean tech, whether it is whatever, pick your favorite business. There will be challenges along the way, for sure, but the key is to trust the people around you, to build out a team around you, and to really drive it home. I may be biased, but I do find that I get into this because I believe in it. But business acceleration groups like Energia are great supports, and whether it's Energia, or any other business accelerator, they're there to help. And they will help you along the way. Janice.
So, oh,
Oh,
sorry about that, Joe. So we
no.
have Janice Fleming. She's actually
Yep.
one of my coworkers.
Hi,
So she
Janice.
has a question. The COVID-19 pandemic has drastically changed the workforce landscape. There's so much more competition to attract and retain good resources, particularly for specialized businesses and projects. What's being discussed about responses to that challenge, especially for new businesses? Good question.
Yeah, and we one thing that we are seeing is a labor shortage, and it's a perfect example of it is software developers and software engineers, and we just can't get enough of them. And I think actually one thing that good or bad that has worked in our favor in the Atlantic region with COVID is remote work, and we are no longer uncomfortable, constrained by hiring people from away, the way that we were in, say, 2019. We've got a much more remote workforce now, so yeah, treat your people well, and try to keep them from being poached. Make sure that they enjoy their work, and they enjoy the environment, but recognize that not everybody needs to be in the office. So if you do have somebody poached, well, maybe you can backfill them with someone from Israel or Latvia or Australia. Although Australia, the time zones may work against you, but generally speaking, we're seeing a lot more of this in that people are working remote, and abroad, which is good in a lot of ways. The hybrid methodology of working is becoming more adopted, and the positive about that is the diversity that we get. Rather than having a homogeneous workforce, we're creating an environment where we have a workforce that may include 25 different cultures in 7 different locations around the world, which is an absolutely wonderful thing. And that's the approach that we take. We with Energia, we don't limit ourselves to recruiting simply New Brunswick companies or Atlantic Canadian companies or even Canadian companies. We recruit globally, and we do this. We do this with intention. The goal is to grow our network, and by default grow the network of our alumni. So if Laura started a company tomorrow and then all of a sudden she realized, you know what, I need to be in Switzerland because that's where my clients are. Well, Smart Helio, a company that went through our program 2 cohorts ago, is based in Switzerland. So I can call them and say, listen, Laura needs a place to crash for 2 weeks. You got a spare desk? And they say, absolutely, we'd love to have her. We hear wonderful things about Laura. So not to put you on the spot. But no, we do it intentionally so that we can have that network and build that network for our alumni companies as well, because the globe is only getting smaller. And it used to be that 6 degrees of separation was a real thing. In New Brunswick, it's 1.5 degrees of separation. Typically, if I don't know you, what somebody in my family does probably, and that's kind of how we work in New Brunswick. And we're working to making the globe more like that as well. And especially with clean tech projects, you're going to be in situations where, if, for example, solar, New Brunswick is not the king of solar, but California has a lot of solar. India has a lot of solar. We can get you to those groups and make sure that you've got a place to whether it's learn from or crash at, or get a warm introduction to a supplier. Make sure that you're always working to grow your networks, and that can be tough because I hide it well, but I don't like people. Like I I to walk up to a stranger, it can be challenging, whether it's in person, whether it's through LinkedIn or a phone call or a Zoom meeting. It can be challenging, and that's one thing that we need to recognize, is that, we have something to offer. We're worth listening to. And don't be afraid if someone thinks you have imposter syndrome, or you feel you've got imposter syndrome. You know what? You're a subject matter expert. This is your topic. Don't be afraid to talk to people about it.
Great. I might have a question, actually. Are you noticing any trends with the participants in the accelerator program, like revolving obviously clean energy? I'm sure there's some interested people in the audience that might have that in their mind.
Yeah, we haven't had much in the way of overlap. We've had, and we do that intentionally. We don't want to oversimplify, invest in McDonald's and then go out and invest in Burger King. So we want to make sure that we can work in similar spaces, but we would never invest in 2 companies doing the exact same thing. But we are seeing a lot in battery. Focus on battery. One of the companies we've had is Tros. They're based out of Toronto, and they're doing I think they've got 2 pilot projects in New Brunswick, and then 1 in Nunavut, and basically they're looking at energy storage as a service. So right now, and reservations in northern Canada are a good example of it. You've got a diesel backup. Most communities in northern Canada, you have diesel backup. Well, they're working to replace that diesel with battery, so it's much cleaner. So we do have a lot of people that are focusing on battery storage, electrification, and we're seeing a lot more in the areas that are the indirect areas. So Smart Helios, for example, the company based in Switzerland, they have a platform that helps manage your solar panels. So they're not looking to sell your solar panels. They're not looking to sell you solar energy. They're working on the IT side to help you make sure your panels are working properly. So we're seeing a lot more of that. The companies that are ancillary or next to the clean tech, and it's helps to enable the clean tech. So they've found a problem. They've talked to, say, the solar panel farms, manufacturers, et cetera, and then they introduce this product that is meant to help and enhance, for example, a solar farm. So we're seeing a lot more of that.
Cool, thank you. That definitely answers it.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? We've got 5, 6.
We have some time. Yeah. Oh, we have another one.
Oh, excellent.
Apologize if I pronounce your name wrong, but I will try. Sweeta Sahid. They have a question. What do you think about nonprofit businesses? So I guess around the clean energy sector.
Nonprofit businesses are just as valuable, if that's the worry, as for-profit businesses. There are a lot of groups out there that don't support non-for-profit. Simply, a lot of times, social enterprises is much better. Yes, social enterprise definitely is something that people support and get behind, and is moving in that right direction. And we're seeing a lot more where it's people care, and as we become a global village, we see a lot more where everything that we're doing matters. The pieces, the sum of the parts matter as much as the whole. So with social enterprise, I love that we as a society are heading in that direction, because far too often you get the, well, I'm not a greedy corporate son of a blah blah blah, so why would I'm not meant to be a founder of the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. It's not. Well, why not? It's great to recognize your strengths and weaknesses, and recognize maybe I don't have the skill set to run $1 billion company, but I do to run a $5 million company. So recognize that your skill sets are there. But with social enterprise, it is. I am a big fan, to put it as simple as possible.
I guess that kind of answers that. I kind of added into that because when I think of nonprofit businesses, my mind goes immediately there. I'm a big fan of social enterprises myself.
And when I went to nonprofit, I'm like, there are a lot of great nonprofits out there, but they do have some challenges,
especially with funding. Just funneling it back into like the programming. I think that's the best business model in my opinion, especially if you're trying to kind of go away from the for-profit world. That you make the profit, but it goes right back into your programming, so it just keeps going. It's a great business model. We have another question from Shannon. He asks, have you run into a situation where two or more had the same idea?
Absolutely, and two is low. Albert Einstein once said, and he won't take credit for it, no idea is an original idea. So as much as we'd like to think that I've come up with the next greatest thing, 99% chance someone's already thought of it. And that's not a bad thing either. If you're coming, if you've come up with something that no one has ever thought of before, you will run into challenges with people saying, okay, who else is doing something similar to this? Well, no one else is doing something like this. You're gonna see a lot of resistance. People, investors want to go to. I'm trying to think of a good term. They want to go to captive audiences, and if you need a culture change in the way we do something, if we're looking at a shift in culture, that takes typically anywhere from 10 to 25 years. So if we need to convince everyone that we're gonna get rid of cow's milk and drink nothing but goat's milk, it will take time to get everyone there. My daughter loved that example, but no, I've seen it hundreds of times where people have come in with, their mind is blown. Oh my God, I have the greatest idea. I am going to take over the world. and they pitch me, and I say, well, I've heard this pitch 3 times this week from different people. So it happens all the time. And, I find it similar to anything competitive. The cream will rise to the crop or to the top. And, it's a race. 2 people can have the same idea. It's all about execution. Ideas are cheap. Execution is expensive. No problem. Any other questions? I don't want to drone on too much, too long.
Trying to think if I have one, because I actually I worked for back at my band in Lisowich Mi'kmaq First Nation, and I worked in the ECDev unit, and we tried to get started on a clean project. It was a self-sustaining greenhouse. Actually, we wanted to be completely like powered either by geothermal or by solar, whatever we could use in that area. And actually, Shannon brought up the fact of like the red tape thing, because that was the biggest thing that we had problems with, was really like making sure it fit the proposal of the funding that was available. So I think that was the biggest challenge that we had. And also obviously trying to convince chief and council that it was worth it for the community. But
Yep.
I don't know if that's also another barrier that you've seen, or maybe you could share some insight on some, so we could look at it.
Exactly. And one of the challenges is people look at ROI. How soon am I going to be paid back? With a greenhouse with geothermal, geothermal, for example, is very expensive from an upfront cost. You're looking at, well, for a greenhouse, probably 50, 60, 70,000 to have enough. So then you have to look at, okay, well, how long before I get that money back? And what are the benefits that are accruing because of it? Is it, it comes back to metrics. How are we measuring it? And, first of all, you need to figure that out internally, and then you need to figure out how that matches up with the funding buckets, and go from there. And sometimes it's a simple yes no. It's binary. Either it works or it doesn't. A greenhouse, for example, is except for that big step of geothermal, maybe it's a milestone based or a tiered based. Okay, we're going to start out step 1, we're going to get greenhouse, and we're going to heat it. It's going to be wood fired heat. Step 1. Step 2, we get a second greenhouse. Step 3, we get the geothermal. So it really is how you peel the apple, I guess. But it can be an uphill battle, and there's no doubt about it that clean tech projects typically, I can't say this 100% certainty, but they certainly do. It certainly seems like they have a much bigger challenge to get funding.
That kind of leads to another question. Oh no, I'll hold on to that one. But we have a new question from Trevor. He says, I'm not sure if you are aware of our program or not, but I am with the Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program. We provide tax incentives to offset expenditures incurred to develop new technology. If you would like more info, please send me your email. Okay, so that was more of a statement for whoever's watching.
That was a pitch. Yes.
Great. Good job, Trevor.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm assuming Trevor is with the Canada Revenue Agency.
Perfect.
And I am very aware of Shred, and it is a great way to recover some of your costs on experimentation. We love the idea of creating and inventing stuff, and the federal government has created incentives to help us along the way. And they will cover off some of the costs. Some of it is tax credit, and some of it is directly refundable. And I'm probably not doing as good a job as Trevor could on this topic, because I am an accountant, but I am not a Shred specialist. So it is certainly helpful. So go for it. Yep.
Another awesome resource for people that are looking for, I guess, very specific funding, and depending on what you're looking for, is this new, I think it's Innovation Canada that came out with it. It's a new tool. It's called Business Benefits Finder. I don't know if you're aware of it, Joe, but It's very
No,
helpful if you're
no.
looking for some what's out there, what kind of funding programs are out there for my idea.
Yep.
You basically kind of give your own little pitch in a very automated sense, but then it shows you a nice little summary of everything that's out there. So I guess it's another statement for everyone that's listening right now. If
Yep.
you do have an idea and you're looking for some funding, that actually leads to another question that I have. Do you think, and maybe it's just a more philosophical question, do
Yep.
you think, given the whole net zero by 2050, um, obviously mandate that the government gave, that funding will start flowing through quickly?
Yes.
Or okay,
I
good.
really, and actually, to be honest, I'm already seeing it. The funding is starting to improve and flow better. And I don't know whether it's the 2050 initiatives, or uh, I don't want to say that it's trending, but I feel that clean tech is moving more towards the center stage. And some people would argue that clean tech is not a sector. Some people would argue that, clean tech is like IT. IT is everywhere, from your smartphones to the elevator to your thermostat. And clean tech is going to go in that direction as well. I think that clean tech will touch everything, whether it's, making a glass, whether it's, growing green peppers in a warehouse, in a greenhouse, whether it's vertical farming. We're seeing a lot more. Even in the last 6 months, I've seen a real big uptick in companies that are looking to fund clean tech companies. So I think that we are going to see a rapid acceleration. Yeah.
Great. That makes me happy to hear.
Yeah, and me. For far too long, it's been a back burner topic, and something that we need to do. Same with social enterprise. It's always been, it's nice, but show me the profits. So now we're getting more towards, okay, well, profit's great, got to make profit, but what else are you doing? Are you removing greenhouse gas from in your processes? Are you providing a living wage to your employees? Are you creating work-life balance environments where everyone feels safe? All those go into it, and fortunately, we're seeing the uptick in clean tech.
I'm just curious. I know because we don't have any questions yet, so I'm just going to keep it
Yep.
going.
Yep. Well,
I'm just curious to know, like this trend. I'm going to put quote unquote. Do you believe it's because of the generational differences that are kind of like the workforce is changing, kind of like in regards to like the generation? So like I'm a millennial, and the Gen Zs, for example. So we have a different perspective of what's important to us, and obviously the social enterprises and clean tech is something that a lot of my generation really focuses on. Do you think that's the reason? Is that because of this workforce is changing?
It could be part of it, but the workforce is definitely changing, and changing for the better. COVID may have sped this up a little bit, and I mentioned the remote working. So we're seeing a lot more people say, you know what, this is how it was. This isn't how it needs to be. And whether it's a generational thing, I am. If you can't tell by the gray, I'm not a millennial. uh, but I have millennial kids, and you know, I think it's just, it's. I think it's partly generational. I think it's partly situational. I think it's partly people are, digging the crap out of their ears and hearing the message that, what, if we don't do something, pardon my language, we're fucked. Uh, and I think that has contributed greatly to it as well. Sorry, I can't talk without swearing at least once per hour.
So it's a little scary. I think that's the
It
main
really is,
drive right
and
now. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
don't know what the future holds, so it's good that we're waking up
yeah.
for
I think
sure.
the future holds chocolate pudding.
That's a nice gift.
Yeah.
Sweta Sahib actually gave us a comment, or I guess a question. Any updates in residential retrofit areas, as affordability is a main barrier, obviously, to
Yeah.
scaling
No.
up?
Unfortunately, I haven't heard anything coming down the pipe on that. I know that the programs exist. It would be nice if they existed as well, for not just retrofitting, but for new construction, it would be really nice. But no, I don't have any real insights from a provincial standpoint on that. No. But afterwards.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
I remember actually briefly when I was looking at funding sources before the business benefit finder tool. One of them was for retrofitting. I don't know if that's an ongoing programming thing or they just kind of stopped.
Yeah, with the with NB Power, it is still in place, and it's both for residential and commercial. So if you're already an existing business and you're looking to upgrade your uh, heating, insulation, lighting, et cetera, the programs do exist through NB Power for both residential and commercial.
Sort of answers the question, I
Yep.
believe, if they're seeking some funding. So put a proposal out there.
Yep. So nbpower.com, and they've got really good information on it. Yeah.
Great. So think I'm out of questions finally, but I'm just going to put out to the floor if anyone else has any other questions. You can also share your video and audio if it's easier to kind of get your question out that way. That's also an option. If you are done with your questions, we can actually go back into the networking if you want, and then for the last 12 minutes or so. And then right after that, we'll go back to the main stage and get the door prize, basically the final one, and then some closing remarks and ceremony. And I believe because everyone is thanking us,
Yeah.
there's no more questions. So I'll let you guys go back into the networking, and you have, again, around 12 minutes to go back into the main stage for the final draw. And I want to thank you, Joe, for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom with our viewers. And I want to thank everyone that's obviously asking the questions and watching and thinking about new projects and new business ideas around the clean sector.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to learn more about Energia, about clean tech in general, I've just put my contact in the chat, so you can send me an email and we can set up some time to talk. And hopefully I can help either way, whether it's to say yes, go this way, or stop what you're doing.
Because sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, that's important too. I would sooner be able to help you fail fast, and not to be the negative curmudgeon, but if it's not going to work, you're much better off. We learn lessons all the time from failure, but if we don't have to learn those lessons, if we can learn those lessons without failing, whether it's anecdotal or not, then we're better. We're further ahead. And why torture yourself for 3 years on an idea that isn't going to work, and lose sleep and hair and joy of life, when with the right direction you could have found out in 3 or 4 weeks that this isn't going to work. So I'm happy to be the curmudgeon, and I'm happy to be the cheerleader.
That's honestly the best advice you can give someone, especially if you have an idea.
Yep.
Because before you start investing too much money, you want to make sure that it's going to work for you and your community.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah,
Awesome.
we have some time.
Thanks, Laura.
Yes, thank you, Joe, again, and everyone else that asked questions and participated and watched, of course. So you want to go back to the networking if you want, or take a break for 10 minutes and then just come back to the main stage for the final draw and closing ceremony.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.